That's how we need to play. Our season starts now, said Ange Postecoglu after a statement 3-0 win against Manchester United at Old Trafford.
Honestly, that's probably the most disappointing loss I've had since I've been here.
Has there ever been a football team that is so consistently, simultaneously good, yet just not quite at the level where we can call them great, but also bordering on the level of disappointing over numerous decades? If you clicked on this video thinking it's a hate video, it's not. I like this team, and I know that when they click, they really will click. In the interim though, I think we'll all be left confused and frustrated. Last week, I made a video on United's loss to Tottenham Hotspur, and in that video, I made claims regarding Spurs. I said they were full of sideways passes and defensive vulnerabilities, particularly when it comes to set pieces, counters, and crosses. In my defense, I based this off of the 2 Spurs matches that I had watched at that point before the United one: Newcastle United and Arsenal. Their only 2 losses of the entire season in all competitions before facing Brighton. I was getting cooked in my own comment section for being biased and narrow-minded, and I'm not denying everything. There's truth to the allegations. I'd like to apologize for saying they were full of sideways passes. Almost everything else was true. Look at this. It's that guy Danny Welbeck about to put the nail in Spurs' coffin to make it 3-2. Does this picture make sense to you guys? Where are the defenders? Where is the keeper? Man United send their regards. Hello my friend, hope you're doing well. Today we speak about Spurs. So the evolution of this video is actually quite something. It started after last week's game after United, where I thought they were simply fantastic. It continued after watching Spurs win a bit less convincingly against Ferencváros in the Conference League. They could have easily been disappointed in that one if not for 1 or 2 close offsides calls. Is this offsides, guys? I don't know, man. And then it culminated in them throwing away a 2-0 lead, the most dangerous margin, against a very well-drilled Brighton side. It's quite fitting that Tony Blue made his billions by gambling, because Spurs supporters pretty much flip a coin on what result they think their team is gonna produce by the end of the weekend. To their credit, Spurs is a very consistent team in terms of play style, which is probably part of the problem, but we'll get into that in a bit. So before last weekend, Spurs had the 2nd best defensive record in the entire Premier League with only 5 goals conceded. Only second to Liverpool, the table toppers, who have only conceded 2. Very impressive. They've scored 14, more than Liverpool. Only Chelsea, Arsenal and City have done better, but they sit in 9th and have lost 3 of their last 5 games and only won 3 out of 7 this whole campaign. Of course, all of that sounds a lot worse than it actually is. We are only really at the beginning of the season, 7 games in, 31 left to go. A lot can still happen. So last week I was mostly being criticized for saying that Spurs were vulnerable in defense, and people were pointing towards their defensive record, telling me how I was wrong with my assessment. And you know what? That is a solid metric to use. The only thing is that you don't really need to be conceding goals for people to be able to see that you're vulnerable at the back. You know, the other team could be bad at finishing, you could be getting lucky, your goalkeeper could be pulling off just incredible magic tricks. Look at Manchester United, for example. I don't need to tell you guys how often David De Gea saved this team, but you wouldn't call them a good defensive side. There have been several seasons over the last 10 years where United have had the 2nd or 3rd best defense in the entire league over an entire season. Are they a defensive powerhouse? Now, before you answer, remember that they started with Leicester's 2018-19 centre-back pairing on the weekend. To be fair, they were actually quite good. Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire did well, and Evans was the man of the match. Even right now, Man United and Spurs have conceded the same amount of goals. Spurs fans, would you say that these 2 teams are defensively equal? I wouldn't say so. And you know what? I know that this isn't comparing oranges and oranges. I'm just saying this to back up what I said last week. I talk about what I see and then use stats to back it up, not the other way around. And listen, this isn't some sort of gotcha moment for anyone that disagreed with me. This is what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to disagree with me. We're all supposed to have different opinions. It's what makes this whole thing fun, you know, this discourse as fans. So Please disagree with me again in the comments and tell me why, and then we'll talk about it. Before that, let's go into a bit more detail. We'll talk about the attack just now, but let's stay on the topic of defense for now, with examples. I was reading an Athletic article by Jay Harris the other day when I was gathering some information on the Spurs side just for some contextual reasons, and he summed up the current management ideology for Spurs really well. These were his exact words. Postecoglu's philosophy is about bravely playing out from the back and relentlessly pressing opponents high up the pitch. I couldn't put it more eloquently myself. Very well said. Keep that in mind. Remember when everyone was piling into Arsenal for protecting a lead that they earned against a strong attacking side that only needs one opportunity to devastate you? Arsenal were cowards. They were cynical. They were a problem. They should have been brave. It definitely would have helped with the spectacle. Brighton vs Spurs is what happens when you are relentlessly brave and don't take your current circumstances into consideration. Again, I'm not saying that the City-Arsenal match and the Spurs-Brighton match are one-for-one comparisons. There were differences. There was a red card. Man City are better than Brighton in a lot of different ways, but the concept rings true. Arsenal were defensive and protecting their lead before they went a man down even. Spurs just decided to attack, and then attack again. And what happened? Well, Brennan Johnson, Dominic Solanke, and James Maddison tore the opposition apart, just like they did against Manchester United. Solanke was finding space and taking men with him. The entire offensive unit was finding holes in that Brighton defense. It looked simply too easy for them as Brennan Johnson and James Maddison weaved their way through to scoring 2 goals in 14 minutes. A goal every 7 minutes is a pretty good goal scoring rate. I was watching this game thinking this team was incredible. The way they worked the ball from the back all the way through to their opponent's net was too smooth. If you told me a year or two ago that this Spurs side would be playing the way they have been doing at points this season without either Harry Kane or Heung-min Son on the pitch, I'm not sure I would have been picking up what you're putting down. And of course, because this is how the universe works, things began to break down. They got too greedy and conceded 3 goals in 18 minutes. A goal every 6 minutes. Tough. It seems that these Spurs defenders are kind of hardwired to progress the ball at all costs regardless of the situation, and there were very few moments throughout the entire match, even when they were 2-0 up, that I saw a Spurs player just calm down, Spurs defender rather, just calm down, take a beat, and control the tempo a little bit. This led to them losing the ball and opening up the play even more for Brighton's attack. And what happens when a high-line system is out of formation? This is a shot right before Brighton equalized. Mitoma is about to pass off to Jorginho Rutter, who produced a wonderful finish. Romero is being dragged out. Minte is free as free can be behind Udogie. Couple that with mistakes like Udogie's botched clearance for the first goal, and you have a team that snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Perhaps it shouldn't come as a surprise that Brighton are as good and drilled as they are regardless of the managerial turnover. The model and building of the club has remained true for several years. The leadership is consistent, something that few clubs at this level can boast. I've talked about it before in this video. A philosophy regarding personnel and a set vision for play style has propelled them to heights that I don't think they saw happening years and years ago. When one player leaves or when one manager leaves, another one comes in with a suitable profile to take them forward. Fabian Hutzler is just the latest in the line of men that are finding success at Brighton. Before taking the Brighton job, he was the St. Pauli manager in Germany. He made a quick trip to Tottenham last season to mingle a little bit, make a few connections, and his most recent victory against Spurs might actually have been explained by Ange Postecoglu himself in his most recent pre-match interview. Hutzler came and spent a day with us last year and asked a hell of a lot of questions. I gave him too many answers, that's for sure. He was just inquisitive about everything. He was already a senior manager and doing a good job, but the fact that he still wanted to ask and had observed us, and I'm sure other clubs as well, not just us, made a real impression on everyone. But this is a Spurs video, let's not steer too far off topic. On a more positive note, in attack, Spurs are great. You can't fault them for their chance creation. They only trail Manchester City for total shots and shots on target. Against Brentford, they fought their way back from a goal down and peppered that Brentford defense 3-1. Against Everton, the Toffees never stood a chance. Basuma destroyed the net with the opener. Spurs were free-flowing 4-0. They smashed Manchester United and Karabakh, both 3-0. All of these matches could have ended in significantly more embarrassing scorelines, and This is another argument for why stats don't always tell the full story. Superiority in possession and superiority in shots doesn't always equate to goals and wins. Against Arsenal, Newcastle, and Brighton, they had more of the ball and more chances, but just ran out of ideas. The Newcastle United match was quite something. Chance after chance, and nothing. Newcastle, with half the chances, outscored them. A cross and a counter. Look at Pedro Porro over here doing his best spectator impression, giving Isak the easiest goal of his life. Again, Arsenal was supposed to be brave against their North London rivals. Instead, they let them have the ball. They bided their time. They rarely committed players forward. They looked to beat Spurs on the break. They were very tentative in the press, and they almost got lucky a couple times. Raya was brilliant and deserves credit for denying them. Make no mistake, both teams, they underperformed in this match. They were both pretty bad, but Arsenal was smarter at the very least. Again, Arsenal had half the chances Spurs did, but just defended their asses off because they read the situation better. And for the only goal of the game, it's centre-back to centre-back Gabriel versus Romero, and Gabriel gets the better of him easily. There's some pushing and shoving going on, but Romero has to be stronger than that. Even his dispute to the ref following the goal was half-hearted. He knew he was at fault. In attack, Spurs' entire game plan in this game was pretty much just take it down the line and cut it back, which is something that does not work against Gabriel and Saliba, despite what the stats and defensive records might say. I've said it before, this is the best defensive pairing in the league right now, I think at least. So after all that, I think we can all see the problem. This is a good team, a dangerous team. What we're seeing here is a consistency dilemma, probably a character dilemma. Big problems considering their most consistent players are all almost gone. It was always going to be a big problem trying to replace Harry Kane. If Spurs somehow managed to find a player that guarantees them 25 plus goals across all competitions this season, I think I might go insane. And we also all know that money can't buy a replacement like this. Richarlison cost £50 million and he's only scored 12 Premier League goals for Spurs so far. Solanke cost £65 million and he's good, but he'll never be Kane. Nor should anyone expect him to be. It's going to be equally as hard, actually maybe even harder, to replace Heung-min Son. Apart from, I can think maybe Mohamed Salah and Eden Hazard most recently for Chelsea, Heung-min Son is the most consistently great attacker in the entire league on a season-by-season basis. He is almost never injured apart from the odd knock. In 9 Premier League seasons, and I'm not counting this season, he has played 303 games. That's an average of almost 34 games a season. For 9 years, he's only scored less than 10 goals one time. That was in his very first season with the club. In a world where you don't know what Spurs is gonna show up, you pretty much always know what Son you're gonna get, apart from the odd blip, of course. Spurs obviously know that, and I'd like to think that for their sake, the players that they're bringing in have been looked at, closely enough for them to be able to say that they'll be able to carry the torch forward for them. The obvious players that come to mind that they have in their current ranks are Dejan Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, James Maddison, and Dominic Solanke, all of whom are great players, but none of whom have the mixture of talent and charisma their Spurs predecessors have. And listen, I'll give it to you straight. I'm being somewhat sensational just because this is the hot topic of the week, and I'll say this right now. It's possible that I'm speaking too soon. I'll happily admit if I'm wrong, if it comes to that, but for now, that's how I see it. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys think about Spurs this season. If you're still watching, thank you. You're a real one, but stick around for a little bit more. I want to talk to you for a little bit. Mini channel update. I like making these post-weekend matchday updates where we kind of laser in and focus on one specific team and talk about their past couple of matches, make some jokes, make some analyses, all that. But I've also been thinking about how we can make the channel a little bit more, interactive going forward. I'm just spitballing here, of course. Maybe we can turn it into like a show format with polls before every match, and we all decide, we all talk about it in some sort of capacity. I'm still working out the logistics of all of it. I'm also trying out different editors to help produce more longer form content, like the Graham Souness video which came out yesterday. If you haven't seen it, give it a watch. The man was crazy. I'd ideally like to produce at least one of those a week, if so. But in order to do that, I'm also thinking about potentially introducing a membership model for the channel. Obviously, for anyone that's interested, all the content will always be free, but that will definitely help to pay for said editors and also provide maximum value for anyone that wants to contribute to the growth of the channel. Most of you guys know that I don't really accept sponsorships on this channel because I don't feel like many of these brands are going to add a lot of value to you guys. So, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm just brainstorming right now. I'm just trying to let you guys that care, at least, which is why this is at the end of the video, know what's cooking in the background and why the uploads haven't been as frequent as they have been in recent times. So let me know what you guys think. It'd be great to involve anyone that cares with the growth of the channel. And that is all from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.